Did somebody say reading challenge? Challenge accepted. This isn't even all the books I want to talk to you guys about today. I have probably close to 60 books that need to be discussed. I've been seeing other booktubers or TikTokers do the Read Across the World challenge, and I've wanted to do it, but I've been hesitant because I don't know how I'm going to keep track of all of it. It seemed like a lot of work to go back and look through all the books that I've read to see where they came from. I found an app online. I think everyone should join this app and be a part of it. And it was so exciting because the more I looked into the books that I had, the more I discovered I have tons from a ton of different countries. And I geeked out over it. And I want to geek out with you guys. Future editing me, I just wanted to pop in and say that I'm going to put all the timestamps in the description below of the different continents that I'm going to be listing. So if you're looking for something very specific, check that out to see if that helps. Otherwise, I hope you stay for the whole video. I think we should start with North America because that's where I'm at. So the first book I have is just a book from the United States of America, which is kind of cheating, I guess. I have to pick a book to represent the United States of America. And what better way to represent the United States than to pick a book that's by an Indigenous author. And this is one of my favorite books I've ever read. If you have not read Betty, you need to read it. It is the best. I have my daughter and my son, who my son is listening to TV super loud downstairs, so you're probably going to hear that. My daughter has a friend spending the night tonight, so you're probably going to hear them being super loud and having fun. So excuse the noise, please. This is a book that has the best character development I've ever read. Complex characters. It is so good. If you liked the book The Glass Castle by Wells, I don't remember her first name, something Wells. It is great. It is an amazing memoir and it's very short. But if you like the characters in that, you will probably like Betty. Epic family drama, a coming of age story of a little girl who idolizes her dad. And we follow her in this poetic way of looking at the world around her, this lovely interpretation of her circumstance. And as a reader, we understand that her dad is an alcoholic, that some of the situations that are going on around her aren't the best, but told in this poetic way. It's just so beautiful. The descriptions are just gorgeous. I cannot sing its praise enough. You need to read this book. That's why I picked this book to represent United States. Jamaica, the Book of the Night Woman. This is about a Jamaican sugar plantation. The slave women, a lot of times, were the ones who formed a rebellion against slave owners, but they never saw them coming because they're women and they just weren't expected to do something like that. But it was more common than people realized to have the slave women be the leaders of these rebellions that happened. So that's what this book is about. It is really well done. We have a book that I don't own, but I did read, and it's called What Storm, What Thunder, and that's from Haiti. It was all right. I found myself not able to quite pay attention to the book the whole time. We have River Sing Me Home. This book is by Eleanor Shearer. I have not said the authors of the other ones. Sorry. I hope you were able to see it when I showed it to you. I'm not going to go back. This takes place in Barbados during the Emancipation Act in 1834, when all the slaves were supposed to be let free. And what happened in Barbados is that they were announced as free slaves, but then they were taken and told that they were a part of an apprenticeship. So they weren't really free. But it's about Sarah, who does escape. I think she had like 7 different kids, and all of them throughout her life has been taken away from her and sold as a slave to another plantation. And it's her trying to find those children and to see what has become of them, to see what freedom looks like in all over the place. So this was really fascinating, and I recommend it. This is from the Dominican Republic. This is called Dominicana. This is by Angie Cruz. It starts off in the Dominican Republic, and it's about this family who's that wants better for their children. She gets married to someone who promises her big promises and promises her to come over to America, and the struggles that she sees once she's here. And this is very much a feminist story, and I recommend. This is Five Little Indians by Michelle Good. This takes place in Canada. It's about the schools that took Indigenous children and were forced to live at these schools, and they couldn't see their families anymore, and the heartache that they went through at these schools, the abuse that they went through at these schools, and then them, after the school is done, them meeting up and finding out what became of them. So that's all I have for North America. Now, South America, we have Ecuador, and this is Jawbone. This is about a teacher and some wayward children. It's very weird and bizarre and kind of hard to understand what's going on at times, but if you like the weird books, then you should give it a try. We have The House of Spirits by Isabel Allende. This is from Chile. This is an author that is a classic author. This is an author that is well renowned. This is a generational story, an epic family drama, and it is really well done. I've read another book of hers, and it was still good, but I just feel like none of her other books can ever beat this book. This book is so good. I recommend anyone to read it. If you're looking at reading one of her books, I definitely would read this one. And then we have Argentina. Argentina was hard for me to decide because Argentina also has written, I believe, Tender as the Flesh, which is an amazing story. But I thought this would be a fun one to talk about, which is Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. I love her writing in this book. I went out and I bought another book of hers. I think it's called The Eyes or something like that. I will eventually read it. I haven't done it yet, but this book makes you feel like you are really in a fever dream. It's this woman's story, and she's at the hospital and she's really sick or something. You're not sure what's going on, and she doesn't know what's going on or why she's there or what's wrong with her. And there is this voice of this man or this boy telling her a story, taking her through the day that caused the thing that she's in the hospital for. So you're trying to figure out with our narrator why she is in the hospital. You're trying to figure it out with her. It is really bizarre. It feels very dreamlike, and I loved it. Now we're going to go to Europe. We'll start with United Kingdom. I have Poor Things for my United Kingdom pick. This book I read recently. I talked about it in my Gothic Reads video. So I recommend you going back and watching those if you want to hear more about what that book's all about. And then we have Ukraine. This is Gray Bees by Andrei Kirkov. We have a book that is divided by war, a country that's divided by war, and you have like a street between the war that's going on with Russia and Ukraine that is the gray zone. And you have this man in this book, and he is a beekeeper. He makes honey, and he would bring it to both sides and distribute this honey. And it's his childlike innocence and him getting along with everyone, and just a very heartfelt read. It's very good. I recommend this book. We've got Spain, Death in Spring by Mercy Rodreda. Not sure if I said that right, but this is an odd little book. Again, if you like weird little stories, it is a fantasy, and it is about a village that is, the world building in this is just so bizarre and so good. And we follow a 14-year-old boy, and this town has some really bizarre and really outlandish rituals. And it's this boy coming to terms with those rituals and maybe fighting against it a little bit too. So yeah, that's all I can really say about this book. It's bizarre. We have Russia. This book I loved so much. If you like mythology, you will like this, or folklore, you will love this. This is When the Whales Leave by Yuri Yetikiu. Again, I don't know if I said that right. This is a story of the first man and first woman, the legend, the mythology of these people. We're following an indigenous people of Russia in that area. The start of their culture, why they believe the way that they believe, why whales are so important to them, why they're like brothers to them. So it is, I don't want to give anything away because this is a very simple story. Very good. I was impressed by it. We have Romania. This is I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. I loved this book. Again, this is a YA, but it is a hard-hitting book. This is about what life was like in the 90s, not that long ago, pretty recent. Romania, 1989 it starts. And I would just remember reading this story and just being so surprised that this went on during a time that I was alive and I had no idea that this was going on. And no one did. The fear-mongering that was going on, they weren't allowed to talk to anyone about this. There's people even from America that are living in their country and they're not even allowed to talk to them about what's going on. There's people constantly watching you and you don't know who's a spy and who's your neighbor. And that neighbor can't protect you because they don't know if you're a spy testing them. Like, it's just such a crazy situation. My heart was so sad reading this. And maybe this is an obvious thing for a lot of people. Maybe a lot of people already knew this history, but I really didn't. I can honestly say I did not know this history before I read it. And we have Italy. This is The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. This author's writing is so good. If you love the slow descent into madness type of books where you're following somebody with depression and you feel that darkness and you feel that loneliness with them, you will love this. It is done so well. I really felt her depression. And not only is this a dark and depressing book, it also is filled with hope. There is a really good conclusion within this story too. It's not just about being sad the whole way through. I have Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jadrowski. This is set in Poland. This also follows the war that was going on in the 1980s. It's a coming of age story between two boys that are confused, that are exploring, that are experimenting in a country that it is illegal to be gay. It's heartbreaking, tragic story too. It is one that's going to make you sad and make you happy and all at the same time. And then we have Ireland. I just read this one last year and I loved this book. It's called Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. This is a psychological thriller, and it is probably my favorite psychological thriller that I have read. We have a girl who, when you're talking to her, you just know that she's off. There's something off about her, and it's not because she was born that way. It's the circumstance that she was born into that has made her distant, and we are following her as an adult and coming to get answers that she's wanted her whole life. So I can't tell you too much because it's a psychological thriller. You need to learn all that as you read it. Then we have The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. And this is from the Czech Republic. This type of book, I can't remember. What is the word that describes a philanthropist? I cannot think of the word. It gives you so much to think about when you're reading. It questions morals and it gives you scenarios that make you see both sides of the story. And even though you know it's wrong, you still can kind of connect to these characters. You have adultery and you have just not always being the best human as you possibly can. It's interesting. I'm glad I read it. I really liked the first half, and then it just got to be too long for me. It's not a type of book that I'm going to be looking to read again. We have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This book is from Belgium. And this is kind of exciting because I just noticed recently that more and more people are talking about this book all of a sudden. It is really good. And honestly, if you like this book, you'll probably like this book too. There's something, the way the story unfolds is kind of that same type of writing style almost. You have no idea what's going on in this book. And you probably won't. Like, you have to be able to be okay to let go of needing answers. We wake up in a prison cell of this young woman and a bunch of women around her that are a lot older. She is the youngest woman. She does not know why they are all in prison. None of them really do, or they're not telling her. Men are the guards. They're not allowed to talk to them. They're not allowed to look at them. It is just a weird situation. It's them surviving. It's them surviving and trying to find answers and trying to figure out what's going on. It was really well written, really well done. We have The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This is an author who was born in Cyprus. I don't think that this takes place in Cyprus, so I guess this is kind of cheating a little bit because the character is a professor at Cambridge University, but the author is from Cyprus, so I think that's okay. This is a dark academia. We have a professor who surrounds himself around young students, and there's a very strong cultish vibe going on around that situation. One of the girls is murdered, and we have, I don't remember if it's a sister or a friend or some sort of family member who's trying to figure out what's going on, and she just knows he's a part of this somehow, but no one's touching him. No one's going near what's going on over there. Then we have The Mad Woman's Ball by Victoria Mass. This takes place in France, and it's about women who were taken to this madhouse. And at this insane asylum, they threw a ball once a year where they said it was to let the women just feel like they were normal society. But what they did is they sold tickets to this ball to the elite, to the wealthy, just to come and watch these crazy women, and they'd get a kick out of it. This is a true story. Like, that stuff really happened. This isn't a true story, but that part of the story is true. It really happened in real life, and that blows my mind. The only critique I would say about this book is that it didn't go into that part of it as much as I wanted it to. It was more of this woman trying to prove that she was not crazy and trying to escape this place. Now we can go to Africa. We have The House of Rust by Khadija Abdallah Bajaber. Oof. Yeah, that's a tough one. This is from Kenya. This is folklore, and I love folklore so much. So if you are familiar with any kind of folklore, heavy folklore story, you know what you're kind of getting when you open the pages of this book. This is very strong in the folklore, and I don't want to go into it too much. Just if that's your type of book, you're going to love that book. It was really a fun book to read. Hey, editing me, I just wanted to pop in because there is another book that I almost finished reading while editing this video, and I thought it deserved to be in this list. It is She Would Be King by Wyatt Moore. This book is set in Liberia. It is a alternate history type of book. This is such a beautiful book. I don't understand why it isn't being sung off of every rooftop of every book reader. It is gorgeous. It is poetic. It is so creative, and I'm in awe. We have our three protagonists. They each have a different magical ability, which they call cursed. We first learn about each of them individually, and then they all find each other somehow, and it is how they rose above what was going on. They rose above the colonizers and any kind of obstacles that came along their way. Very cool way to get your history in. This is exactly what I look for in history book. When I'm learning history, this is how I want to read it. I have Egypt, and that is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. I would say you would like this book if you liked Lolita and books like this. These type of books, this is the same, like your coming of age, exploration of identity. You know, it's something that is outlawed or something that's kind of taboo, and being fearful of getting caught. If you also like stories of Lolita a little bit, just because I say that because the lead boy is very young, and the man that he is experiencing and exploring with is a man. He is older. So I know that does bother some people, but I can appreciate that experience, that exploration, that confusion. And it wasn't this older man who was forcing anything upon it like Lolita. That's a little different. I really liked it. That's all I can say. We have The Stranger by Albert Camus, and this is from Algeria. I'm torn with this book. The first half was really interesting. We have racism and prejudice and a murder that happens that should not have happened. And that murder happened because of prejudice and racism. So the first half is very interesting, but then it goes into a trial in the second half, which I wasn't as interested in. But you follow the mind of the people who are racist and jumping to conclusions. It was very interesting to be in that mindset. But like I said, the second half just was a little slow. And I'm not a big courtroom scene type of reader, but it's a classic. Then we have Homegoing by Ya Gayasi. This takes place in Ghana. Like a 300-year story. This is an epic family drama, generational story. We start out in Ghana. You have two sisters, two half-sisters, both born in different villages. And what happened when Europeans came through and them getting separated. One getting married off to a European, the other running and hiding, and you're traveling 300 years of these stories, how those choices have changed their life and their children's lives. And it's a trickling effect, and you get to see that and read it. And there's even a family tree at the very beginning of this story to help you keep track of all the names and families and who belongs to who and what family. So it's really convenient to have that. You will need it because when you're reading it, it's such a short story, and for them to switch, it's like every chapter is someone different, a different family that you're following. So it was really, really well done. And then we have Nigeria, and this is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dar. Probably one of my favorite books that I've read. And I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and it was the most emotional thing I've ever listened to. I adored this book. We follow a little girl in Nigeria, and you see the racism there and trying to have a voice. So it is a very strong feminist story, and it comes from darker skinned in Nigeria, in a poorer community in Nigeria, how hard it is for her to get to where she wants to go and to have a voice, and for people to hear her and what she has to do to get there, to fight through all of the hurdles to get somewhere, to get herself an education, to become somebody so she can be heard. So it's The Girl with the Louding Voice. It's just beautiful. Oh my goodness, we finally got to Asia. I have another book that I don't have, but I have read, and I don't know why I don't own it. I thought I did, but it's called Build Your House Around My Body. This is from Vietnam, and this is a bizarre book. It's really weird. I can't even tell you what it's about. I just remember weird things happen. It almost feels like drugs were involved, and a lot of things I can't piece together. I did like it. If you like weird books, you'll probably like it. If you're one of those people who need to understand what's going on at all times, you shouldn't read it. But I liked it. We have The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. This is a beautiful book. This takes place in Turkey. And again, it's about war. This book is fun if you like inanimate objects that are narrators. We have a tree that has its own chapters within the story of its own narration and its own take on what's going on. We have a guy who travels to London. He's escaping the war, everything, the hardship that went on in Turkey. And he's bringing his little girl, and he's bringing this tree with him. I don't remember what kind of tree it was. A tree that grows in Turkey, but he's bringing it to London with him and his child. It's a token of his life that he's leaving behind. He goes to extreme measures to take care of this tree because it is such an important piece of his history. And you go back and you find out he fell in love underneath this tree, and this tree also gets chapters throughout this of narration of her view of the world and what's going on, and her confusion or her appreciation of this love that she's feeling from this man. And it's just such a sweet story. Very hard hitting. You have two opposite sides of politics within Turkey, and you have a boy and a girl from different sides that fall in love and the hardship that they face because of that love. So it is a beautiful story. We have As Long as the Lemon Tree Grows by Zuli Kato. This is a YA story, but it is hard hitting. Do not let the YA hold you back. This is a hard-hitting story. This takes place in Syria. And again, it's war that's going on in Syria, and constant bombs. And this is what she's grown up with. She has had extreme tragedy, and all that's left of her family is her and her sister, who is pregnant. And she promises before her brother dies, that she will take care of his wife, which is her sister. It's her sister-in-law, I should say, that's still alive, because she's pregnant, and she promises that she will do everything she can to take care of this child. So she doesn't want to leave and abandon her and this unborn child, and she doesn't want to make them leave and go on a boat and risk the life of this child either. So she's kind of stuck in a hard place. She's a nurse. She's taking care of all these wounded people. And this town, this village, is going up in smoke. And she has this invisible friend, this conscience, who is constantly in her ear and making her feel guilty about things and making her feel like she needs to do everything she can to take care of this sister-in-law, while there's a man that comes into her life that was a part of her past, who is giving her hope and giving her ideas and dreams and temptation of a better life somewhere else. And then we have another book that I do own it. I borrowed it out to a friend, and it's Almond. It takes place in South Korea. Great book. So I really enjoy psychological thrillers. I really enjoy anything when it comes to the mind and coming to understand somebody else. And that's what Almond is. It is such a good story. I cried reading that book, and I don't do that very often, but I did. I cried in that book. So we have A Woman Is No Man by Ataf Rum. This is from Palestine. This reminds me a little bit about the Dominicana book that I pulled out earlier. They are similar. If you like one, you're going to like the other. They're both really, really well written, but you have a family drama. Again, you start out in Palestine with a family who wants better for her child, and they marry her off to someone who brings her to America, and then it's their struggle with being an immigrant and needing money, her wanting her own way. So again, a feminist story, really, really well written. We have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. This is North Korea. It's fantasy, mythology, and I loved it so much. You have a village who is superstitious and believes in this god who wants to harm them, who wants to harm their village. So they make these sacrifices to this god of the most beautiful girl in their village who is pure and saves themselves for this god, and they dump her in the ocean to please the god for another year or another, I don't know how long, maybe it's 10 years, I don't remember exactly. But this girl that's chosen that year was a girl that her brother is in love with. So she sacrifices herself, and she is not the best, she is not the most beautiful, and she's not the most perfect. So it's her journey through the sea to find this god, and to just a lot goes on. That's all I'm going to say. Then we have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Q. Sutanto. And this is an Indonesian author. This takes place in America again. It's not in Indonesia. So a part of me really still wants to look for another Indonesian book. But this author was born in Indonesia. So it's in this list. But I think you all have heard this book. I'm going to skip what that one's about. It's a cozy mystery. If you like cozy mysteries, check that out. We have Persepolis, and this is by Marjane Satrapi. This is a graphic novel, and it's a memoir of this little girl's life. This takes place in Iran. And it starts with when she went to school, and she was just this normal little girl who just played like any normal little girl would play. And all of a sudden this movement came in, and they all were forced to wear these headdresses, and they were really confused by it. And now all of a sudden there's segregation with women or with girls and boys. You can't be together. You can't talk to each other. There's just all these new rules that were forced upon them. And now all of a sudden there's curfews, and there's all these things that she didn't used to have. Her parents, who are fighting for their rights, they send their daughter, hoping for better things for her, to a family member in Australia. And she has it really rough in Australia, and you follow her journey there and her growing up there, and then coming back again to Iran, to it being even harder there than she remembers. And yet she also had a hard life in a different way, and she's used to having her freedoms. And it's just really such an interesting bird eye view of this lifestyle. I highly recommend. I really think that memoirs told in graphic novels are the way to go. I have loved every single one of them that I've read so far. And then we have Japan, which there were way too many books to choose from. If Cats Disappeared from the World is the one I ultimately chose to show you guys, by Junki Kawamura. And it's just such a sweet, wholesome book. You have this devil that shows up, and he's trying to tempt this man into having an extra day. He's told that he's going to die. And he says, if you want one more day, what would you give up? And it's the devil choosing what he's going to give up to. You have to decide, is one more day of your life worth not having whatever in your life? And so it's just if Cats Disappeared from the World, that's just one of the items that is decided upon if you'd be okay without that in the world. It's a very unique book. One of my favorite books that have left such a big impact on me for many years after that I've read it. It's still one of my favorite books I've ever read. And this is A Fine Balance. This is by Rowington Mystery. This is during the beautification movement that went on there, trying to get rid of anything dirty, anything poor, anything that they deemed as ugly and didn't want to be associated with India anymore. And it's somebody who lives in those areas. All of a sudden, the things that they're doing are worthy of just being sent to jail to work at these farms because they can't live on their own. And her trying to come above it, trying to escape this position that they make impossible to get out of. And it is such a great found family story, the most heartfelt, loving characters I've ever read. When I closed the cover of this book, I was so sad that I was walking away from my friends, because that's what it felt like after I read, is that these were my best friends and now I had to say goodbye. That was hard for me. Then we have China. Four Treasures of the Sky by Jenny Tingawi Zhang. I really like this book a lot. And again, there was a bunch of books that I could have chose. This starts out in China and we follow this girl who gets taken and sent to America in horrible conditions, in a horrible situation, and forced into prostitution, forced to do things that she never would have done before. And her escape, her struggles, great story. I loved this so much. And then we have Afghanistan, A Thousand Splendid Suns. This is by Khalid Hosseini, I think is how you pronounce it. He's also the same author that wrote The Kite Runner. I think everyone has heard of these books, so I'm not going to go into it. That was a trauma. That was a lot of trauma in that book. I would never read it again. I cried. I had a hard time with that one. And then we have the Oceanic countries. The first one is Eleanor Cotton by Burnham Wood. This is from New Zealand. We have a guerrilla gardening group who is trying to make a difference in putting gardens everywhere, little free gardens for people who can't afford anything, that need help, and they're trying to make a difference. And they need funding, they need people to volunteer and to make big donations. And there's a man who does. He makes a huge donation, and he also gives them land to garden on, and everything seems very fishy about it. But I mean, what can they do? This is what they need, so they're going to go through it. And whole book is about miscommunication, which I usually cannot stand in books when people miscommunicate, because I feel like just talk to each other. But this was done so well, and this is what the purpose and the point of this book is just one miscommunication after another, and it's done in a way that's so believable and understandable. I really liked it. And then we have Migrations from Charlotte McConaughey. This is Australia. I really liked she wrote another book, Once There Were Wolves, and that is actually my favorite book of hers. I borrowed Once There Were Wolves to somebody else, so I don't have that book on me at the moment. But this is a dystopian. This is where birds are going extinct. She's trying to find birds, and she goes onto this fishing boat because they're going in a direction that she knows or believes that birds exist over in that area. So this is just about troubled times, and it gives you a little shred of hope in there too. It's just a beautiful story. I'm a huge fan of this author now. Editing me came back to finish this video off. I videotape everything on my iPhone, and it did not videotape my whole video, which is really annoying. I have 23 books that I own on my shelves that are for 23 different countries that I've never read from before. I'm just going to briefly show you all the books that I have and what countries they are set in, and not give you any descriptions. First, we have North America. The Mermaid of Black Conch by Monique Rafi. This book is set in Trinidad and Tobago, and I just love this cover. A black mermaid sounds wonderful. Then we have Costa Rica with Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angres. This book is just beautiful. That's why I picked it up. So it's kind of cool that this is also from a country I've never read from before. Then we have El Salvador. This is Solito by Yavar Zamora. This is a memoir. I believe it's an immigration story. Then we have South America, and this is Colombia. This is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is a classic book. I picked it up because it is on a classic book list of the best books that everyone should read. We have a book from Brazil. This is The Invisible Life of Eurydice Gusmao, and this is by Martha Batala. And now we jump to Europe. We have The End of Loneliness by Benedict Wells. I love tragic stories. This cover just looks very tragic. And this is from Germany. This is The Nursery by Sylvia Molnar. The cover just looks very weird and bizarre and interesting. This is set in Hungary. This is S by Slavanka Drakulic. This is set in Croatia. This is during the World War II times with the Japan occupation and the big raping that happened. And I've heard it's horrible and traumatic and something I might not recover from. So naturally I need to read it. I don't know why, but I got to do it. We have the Netherlands. This is The Discomfort of Evening by Marieke Lucas Reneveld. This just looks like it's going to be exactly the type of novels that I love to read. And then there's Denmark. This is called The Employees by Olga Raven. I've heard this is a very weird and bizarre book. Right up my alley. We have Austria. This is The Piano Teacher by Alfred Jelinek. I think this is like a Hello, Mrs. Robinson type of situation here. So very intrigued. This is Norway. We have Paradise Rot by Jenny Haval. I heard that this is really weird and bizarre. I mean, there's a theme in these last few books. This is Daphnis and Chloe by Longus. This is Greece. This is used, apparently. But this is Greece, and I just love mythology. This has been on my shelf forever. Now we go to Africa, and this is The Ardent Swarm by Yaman Manet. This is set in Tunisia. The Promise by Damon Galgut. This is South Africa. How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo Mdbu. This is set in South Africa. And now we go to Asia, and we go to Sri Lanka. And this is called Blue Skin Gods by S.J. Sindhu. We go to Armenia, and this is Three Apples Fell from the Sky. Exit West by Mohsin Hamad. This is Pakistan, and I have another book by him too. So I really need to get this book out of the way so I can read the other one too. We have Iraq. This is Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi. And then we have Lebanon, and this is the Hakawati. This is by Rabai Alameddine. And then I have two books that are on their way to me that are also from other countries, which was kind of exciting. One is located in the Philippines, which is called Silver Under Nightfall. And that is by Rin Chupeco. And that's a vampire story, and it looked really interesting. And then we go to Amman, and it's called The Bride of Amman. That is by Fidi Zagmount. And then I'm going to put on the screen for you guys just a bunch of books that I've had on my Goodreads TBR. And a lot of these have been sitting on there since for the last couple years. The first couple are from North America. And then we go to South America. And then we go to Europe. Then we have Asia. And that is it. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about of all the countries that I have read and planning on reading, excited about reading, looking forward to reading, all of the above. I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you got something out of the video. I sure did. I enjoy doing this. I love doing little research projects of my own for some reason. If you have any other book recommendations from countries I haven't listed, I would love to hear about them. But otherwise, until next time, bye.